From Golden Globes to Golden Men, the movie award season has officially gotten underway. And what better way to celebrate a great year in cinema than to celebrate the best and worst of 2019? All that and more on the first episode of Cinema Talk. Now please, quiet on the set. What's going on, everybody? It's the first episode of Cinema Talk. We're going to be here talking about movie money, movie news, everything movie related, anything you can think about movies, we got it covered. My name is Ayinde. I will be your host, and joining me is two of my best friends, Brendan Wells, Justin Rogers. Guys, how you doing?
Always happy to be with you, buddy.
Oh, it's good to be here, my guy.
All right, and now the topic of our show is going to be award season. As we know, Golden Globes just happened not too long ago, and with the Oscars coming up not too long from now, we're going to be sort of having our own little awards ceremony, giving the best and the worst films a little bit of recognition. But first, as always, we're going to be talking about the box office. We will open up that discussion really quickly. So first, Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker once again wins the weekend at $34.5 million. It is now sitting at $451 million domestically and $918 million worldwide. It is about 2 weeks from breaking $1 billion. Second is Jumanji at $26.2 million, and it is sitting at a $609 million worldwide box office gross. And Frozen 2 just became the highest grossing animated film of all time this weekend at $11.9 million. And sitting at a $1.326 billion. And we had a movie that debuted, The Grudge, debuted at fifth, making $11 million on a $10 million budget. Really briefly, guys, is there anything notable that you guys want to point out?
I mean, Frozen 2 being the most high-grossing animated film of all time. I think that, especially with the first Frozen being as popular as it was, in my opinion, Frozen 2 is so much better. But then with a bunch of animated films even coming out this year, like you got Toy Story 4 and all these Pixar films coming out, it was just really surprising for me to see Frozen 2 being one of the highest grossing animated films of all time.
Kids' movies always win it, man. You know, there's an appeal there, and every parent in every nation across the globe is taking their kids to see that movie. So, I mean, that's a surprise, but at the same time, it's not. We kind of expect Frozen to be big in the numbers. But what I really like to see is Jumanji up there. Yeah. That was a pretty good movie. I still prefer the first one, but it's nice to see a comedy consistently ranked towards the top here in the last couple of weeks.
I think also we want to pay a little bit of attention to The Grudge. It had the lowest cinema score for a horror movie. It sat at an F in its opening weekend, which spells really, really bad news for its day-to-day grosses. It made its budget back, $10 million budget, and you're making $11 million already. You're sort of in a bit of a winning position, but then as weeks are coming by, we're going to be seeing a huge drop-off, especially with 1917 coming out, which it came out on Friday. So now that we're done talking about our box office, we got a little bit of movie news roundup. This segment, we will pick 3 stories out of the week, and we'll have 5 minutes to just, sort of talk about it. First one, New Mutants. After 2 years of waiting, anticipation, we are finally getting a new trailer, and the movie has a set release date in April. Guys, thoughts about the trailer?
I thought it actually looked pretty good. It was very immersive, or at least the trailer was, and so I didn't expect it to be a horror film. I'm going to be honest, when I think X-Men, I don't typically think horror, and I think that it looks like it's going to be good, but I'm also holding my breath because I know that Marvel likes sticking to a certain kind of way of doing things, so I'm curious to see if they're actually going to stick with this horror-themed movie or if they're going to change it last minute.
So for me, watching this trailer, it brought back to me being in theaters and watching the trailer for this movie 2 years ago. I was like, wow, they actually came out with this 2 years ago. What the heck happened to this movie? And like comparing the two trailers a little bit, this one, obviously it seemed better, more up to date. It's like any TV show where you have the first pilot and then you come out with the second pilot. Like there's changes you're going to make for whatever reason here. Honestly, I don't think it's gonna do that well in my opinion. Right now, I mean, with all the movies that are coming out, you have this, you possibly the next Doctor Strange coming out. We have, with that one possibly having a horror angle, we could possibly be seeing some of these superhero movies becoming more horror based and having some of the genres being combined.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you all. I think the movie looks really good. I've had hope for this film. Looking at mutants from a horror perspective, because to these characters, having mutant powers would be scary. So why not try to explore that? Josh Boone, I know this production has been tumultuous for him. I'm glad this movie's finally getting its release. Hopefully that it delivers on its promises. Next up, Christian Bale, the Batman from the Dark Knight trilogy, is in talks of joining Thor: Love and Thunder. Guys, what are your thoughts? Who do you think he's gonna be?
I mean, I don't know. My hopes for this movie, I don't think could be any lower. I have no faith that this movie is going to work. I love Christian Bale as an actor and what he goes through for his role. So whatever it is, I mean, Christian Bale doesn't take a role he doesn't care about.
Yes.
So I mean, that is good to see. But I don't even know if Christian Bale can save this movie. I don't know.
I think when I think of Christian Bale, I think of Batman. So it's going to be hard for me not to see that. But also, kind of spinning off of what you said, talking about Marvel a little bit, I feel like Marvel and Disney, when they choose their actors for their movies, there is a specific reason why they choose their actors. So if Christian Bale is going to be in this movie, he is either going to be in a very sidekick kind of role, or it's going to be more of he'll be in like a 5 to 10 minute scene helping someone through something, and then that's it. It's going to be hard for me to see where he's going to be just because he's going to be in this movie. But again, kind of like you were saying, Brandon, like my expectations for this movie not really high, just because of the casting they've already had for this movie, and it's kind of in that phase of the Marvel universe, like this is just the in-between phase. So a lot of these movies, like, they might not be good movies, but more of like transition movies, kind of like Ant-Man, the second Ant-Man was.
Okay. Yeah. For any clarification, Christian Bale is one of the rumors that he's going to be playing Beta Ray Bill, who is basically like, I don't want to say this, but he's like Thor, but like a horse. He's like a human horse. It's weird. But I mean, that's something that Taika Waititi is good at. Like, he's good at the weird. I think that if Christian Bale ended up being Beta Ray Bill, I think it would fit. And last but not least, really quickly, Hans Zimmer takes over the scoring for the new James Bond film, No Time to Die. The film releases in April. Does this spell worry for the score?
No, it does not. What the heck? Hans Zimmer is one of my favorite of all time, and just thinking about James Bond and then just adding Hans Zimmer to that. Hans Zimmer is fantastic at building suspense, and the James Bond movies, like, usually all I can think about is the suspense that goes into those movies. So I think this was a great get for this movie to have Hans Zimmer do the music for this film.
This is the equivalent as if Star Wars were to not have John Williams do a movie, which they officially have done now because John Williams doesn't do Star Wars anymore. But, you know, this movie is ultimately going to come down to, are they going to keep the classic intro or not? Because if they don't, I don't think this movie's going to do very well, because that's a huge thing.
Yeah. So what I mean, I always wanted to say, like, I know it's a great get. I just mean, like, with the movie coming out in a couple months, that's them just getting Hans Zimmer. That spells a little bit of worry about, Hans Zimmer's gonna be in crunch time.
Yeah.
And a lot of artists can't perform on crunch time.
But I feel like if anybody can do it, it is Hans Zimmer, though.
That is fair. All right. So now we're gonna get into the bulk of this segment, the award season, guys. Golden Globes happen. We got the BAFTAs coming up. They just announced their nominations, and we got the Academy Awards in February. Why don't we do one? So here I prepared 10 different categories for each of us to talk about. I'm going to give you guys 1 minute. Each make your case as to what the best film, worst, whatever the category is. So, Brandon, I'm going to start with you. We're going to go from the bottom up. This decade has been super important to cinema. But what was the most impactful thing in Hollywood of the decade? Brandon, 1 minute. Who is your nomination for the Hallmark Achievement of the Decade?
I think it's got to be Disney. I mean, Disney pumps out so many quality movies every year. They basically took over the globe with the MCU. I think this is a no-brainer. Disney has owned this decade, and I don't even see a close second place.
Okay, wow, that was a very convincing argument. Justin, 1 minute. Who do you nominate for the Hallmark Achievement of the Decade?
Yeah, I was going to say Disney, just because, for the main fact that they bought Marvel. and they bought the rights to Marvel, and because they kept pumping out all of those movies, I don't think Endgame would have had the effect that it had on just film in general. Endgame on film, it was just history in the making, because we've never seen 23 movies come down to one huge movie like that, and I don't think it would have happened without Disney. So I'd have to say Disney as well.
All right, now it's my turn. My nomination for Hallmark Achievement of the Decade. I'm going to stick to sort of the same sort of path you guys are on, but I'm going to pick one person in particular. Cast your minds back to 2008. Robert Downey Jr., I think, deserves the Hallmark Achievement of the Decade because the Marvel Cinematic Universe in its entirety would not be what it is today had it not been for Robert Downey Jr.'s portrayal of Iron Man. From Iron Man 2 to Spider-Man Far From Home, you see his influence and the way that he crafted this character of Tony Stark. I almost said Robert Downey Jr. because the two characters are so synonymous with each other. Mm-hmm. And when you have a character like that who can get people to bawl in theaters, who are so good, just it's almost uncanny how good he is. I think he deserves the Hallmark Achievement because he had the most impact out of all the movies or anything of that decade. All right, next up, genre of the year. There's been a lot of genres. Justin, what genre do you think had the most success of 2019?
I think for the 2000s, it was mostly like adventure, sci-fi. It has to be the superhero genre for the 2010s. Because, I mean, we're going to talk about, most likely on the show, a lot about the MCU and a lot about, like, the impact it's had on film. But if you think about it, like you said, with the MCU coming out with 2008, Robert Downey Jr., Iron Man, since then, like, the MCU just took off. And also just coming out with movies about superheroes that, like, I've never even heard of, like Ant-Man, Guardians of the Galaxy. Just coming out with those movies and just, like, blowing my mind. With how much they were just influencing me. And also just with, like, people that aren't even into comics now are into superheroes because of these movies. I would say the superhero genre.
All right, cool. So, my turn now. We'll go across the table. I'm going to make a case for the horror movie genre. This year, especially 2019, had some pretty impressive horror films that came out. Midsummer, I think, is probably the best out of the bunch. But then we also had Chapter 2 that came out that I thought was really good. I don't think it's as great as the first one. Brandon, you and I may disagree on that. But again, you see that we're starting to take steps into doing new things that we don't see a lot. Yeah, we're always going to have the found footage movies. We're going to always have the movies that try to rely on cheap jump scares. But then we also have movies like Midsummer. We have movies like Brightburn, which takes the concept of Superman and tries to make it into a horror film, something that is genuinely terrifying. That's something that we haven't had in a long time in a lot of other genres. So for me, the horror movie genre has had a lot of success.
I don't want to keep talking about this and sticking with this, but you cannot argue against the numbers. Endgame is the highest grossing movie of all time now. Yeah. They also had Joker and Spider-Man that came out in 2019. Superheroes got to have it. They make the numbers, they bring in the cash, and they bring in crowded audiences.
All right, guys, I'm going to start this category off. Trailer of the year. This could be a trailer for a movie that came out next year or for a trailer for a film that came out this year. So it can be a trailer that's coming out for something that's happening in next year or something for this year. I'll go first, but it's got to be the first Joker trailer. When you see what Todd Phillips did with this film, and you look back in that trailer, you realize how much that trailer got everything right and almost nothing right. And obviously the music is fantastic, using Jimmy Durante's Smile as basically the backbone of the score for that trailer, and just the last shot where you see the Joker walking down the hallway in full suit and clown makeup. It gets me chills. So for me, that's got to be the trailer of the year. I couldn't stop talking about it.
I have a couple of candidates here, a couple of nominations, but at the end of the day, I can only pick one. I'm going to kind of go a little left field here because it was one of my most anticipated movies coming into 2019, and I ended up hating the movie, but I anticipated so highly because the trailer convinced me it was good, even though the movie wasn't. The trailer did its job, and that's Halloween 2019. It gave me everything I want in a Michael Myers film. It gave me the music, gave me the suspense, gave me some killing, but it didn't give me much of a story, which is what I want out of a trailer. I don't want to know the story of a movie before I go see it, which is what I think most comedy movies do horribly wrong, is they show the entire movie in their trailer. Halloween didn't do any of that, and it made me genuinely excited for this film, and it also set up a huge disappointment for me, but the trailer did a perfect job.
So I'm gonna go with a movie that hasn't come out yet, but a trailer that did come out in 2019. I'm gonna go with the Black Widow trailer. This trailer made me super excited about this movie. I was not excited about this movie until I watched the trailer. It had everything I want in a trailer. It didn't give away too much, but also it set the tone for what the movie is going to be about. I had no idea how this movie was going to be set up, at least what the plot line would be like. So it was cool to see like what the plot line would be like, but it gave away not really that much. So I'm excited to see this movie because the Black Widow trailer came out in 2019.
I just want to say that David Harbour's Red Guardian looks really good.
Oh yeah.
So, all right, Brandon, movie score of the year. Honestly, simple as it gets, who had the best music?
Best music of the year. I'm gonna go out of left field again because this is another movie I found decently disappointing. It was okay, but the constant, intense music that was in the background the whole movie, I gotta go with El Camino, the Breaking Bad spinoff movie. The score inside that movie is very overlooked because it was very upbeat the entire movie and kept your heart racing and kept wondering what's gonna happen next. So I think very underrated.
Movie score of the year. I think it's very easy right now for me to say Star Wars because it's John Williams. But I'm going to go with a movie I've seen recently. It's probably because of recency bias. But I'm going to say the Knives Out score. The Knives Out score was fantastic. I loved its use of strings throughout it. But the very end of the score, it's tiny use of jazz at the end of the score is really what made it for me, because it just made it seem like that old-timey sort of feel for you, but also at the same time it allowed it to come to a conclusion. And then just the main theme being used over and over and over again, and then having some different instruments underneath, it just made that movie for me.
For my movie score of the year, I've been really trying not to talk about this film because everyone knows how much I love it. But come on, the Avengers Endgame score is absolutely phenomenal.
Yes.
Man, even you just consider the last act of the film where you have one of the most iconic moments paired with a song that's just you can't escape it. It's everywhere now.
Yeah.
Everyone's talking about using it for graduation. It's probably going to be my graduation theme. That's how impactful, that's how important that score is to that film. It feels like its own separate character. It does a lot of things that are different than it did in Infinity War, again, like the opening credits. It's so inventive, and it ties everything together. Like, you have the story and the screenwriting that ties everything together, but also the music does too, and I feel like that's something that you need to praise.
I would have said in game, but you said try to avoid repeats, so
Oh, because you knew I was gonna say it.
easily.
All right, here we go, Justin. Director of the year. Which director do you think had the best year or the best film of the year? And either or, make your case. Go ahead.
Anthony and Joe Russo. I don't know how you could not say them. I feel like for any of these, like, Endgame is going to be probably most of these, so whoever gets to say the award first is probably going to say them. But Anthony and Joe Russo, I have to say them, mostly because one of the highest grossing movies of all time, and also the fact that you could pull off one of the greatest movie moments of all time, and the fact that both of them, just as people, are like, don't have spoilers, don't have spoilers, don't have spoilers. For one of the greatest film events ever, I have to say both Anthony and Joe Russo for this one.
I'm going to go out of left field too. I'm going to pick Ari Aster, the director of Midsommar. I love that movie. And the way that Aster directs this film, it is very terrifying. Like, it's not like scary in a traditional sense. Like, you know, there's not like a bunch of big jump scares. It's not like this weird creature or anything, but it's the unsettling nature of this cult that's just seeping into the minds of the characters. And that final scene, it is shot, framed so perfectly that it leaves you like, what just happened? And for me, when a film can make me go, what just happened? listen, you gotta hand it to the director. So I'm giving it to Ari Aster.
I want to give it to Sam Mendes for 1917, but that's technically not a 2019 film. I had another director I wanted to put up.
Okay, go ahead.
Which is much more relevant to 2019, and that's Todd Phillips. I mean, what a job he did with Joker. Just coming off of Stars Born from a year before, which was another huge hit. Usually does comedies. He directed the Hangover movies, and he comes out with this masterfully crafted, just genius work of art. And, I don't think anyone could have done that movie better.
All right, I get to start off this category. This one, I'm excited. Actor and Actress of the Year. Which film had, that star actor? Someone who had a breathtaking performance. I'm going to start off with a name that you will not guess. Jennifer Lopez for Hustlers.
What?
I know, right? You would think Joaquin Phoenix, right? But I'm not a big fan of, these kind of, true crime films. But Jennifer Lopez, she's mesmerizing in this film. She commands every single scene that she's in. And remember, she's not that great of an actor, let's be honest. She was in movies like The Boy Next Door, where, let's be honest, movie's really bad. And she was decent in it, but man, I walked out of Hustlers going, I think the movie's really underrated, but man, Jennifer Lopez was so good.
I mean, you left it open. I got to go Joaquin Phoenix. He stepped up there. I'm still baffled. I still can't pick Joaquin Phoenix or Heath Ledger, which before Heath Ledger was my number one acting role of all time. But, I can sit here all day and talk about this. Very different side of arguments. Kind of not fair to compare the two. But Joaquin Phoenix did just such, he was that job. That movie was possible because of Joaquin Phoenix. I just talked about Todd Phillips. Well, I don't think anyone could have portrayed that specific character better than Phoenix did. Very mentally disturbed individual. Yeah, I was convinced.
All right, Justin.
I'm gonna have to say Jake Gyllenhaal on this one for the way he portrayed Mysterio. I don't think anyone could have pulled it off more than he could. Having that father figure role for Spider-Man in that one, but also being able to pull off that mysterious kind of vibe. I don't think anyone could have pulled that off in that way, in the same way that Joaquin Phoenix pulled off the Joker. Nobody could have done it better.
I just want to point out, that collective, when I said Jennifer Lopez, I, believe it or not, I didn't think I was going to like it, but man. So, most overrated film of the year. All right, Brandon, I'm going to start with you. What's a film that, while a lot of people really like this film, you think may not actually be as good as everyone says it is?
I think you already know what I'm about to say here, Ayinde. I think you already know what I'm about to say. I got to go Captain Marvel. I really, really despise that movie. I do not like it. It just, every direction it went, I give it a thumbs down. And so many people love it. I have a friend back home that puts it in his top 5 MCU movies. I'm just looking at him like, just walk away, Brandon. Walk away, Brandon. And, that's bad when it started to come down on him just saying like that. Just, don't get in a fight over a movie.
Yeah, I wouldn't put it in top 5.
No.
Not at all.
No. All right, this is a film I actually like, but I think people like it a little too much. I think Toy Story 4 is overrated. Just for at least of 2019 films, I don't think it was one of the best films, at least animated, of the year. It definitely overshadowed how good How to Train Your Dragon 3 was. The fact that people are saying that Toy Story 4 was better than that movie is insane to me, because How to Train Your Dragon 3 was fantastic. Compared to the other Toy Stories, I thought it was a good movie, but as far as 2019 overrated movies, as far as animated movies go, I think it had to be Toy Story 4.
Look, guys, Jordan Peele, phenomenal director. I love Get Out.
I agree with
and I really like Us. I don't love Us as much as I did when I first watched it.
I can agree.
I don't think that this is some revolutionary film. I think it's a good movie. It's really good. Jordan Peele, again, he knows how to do a horror film. When you start picking apart the movie, you realize a lot of things don't make sense. And again, shot really well, but it's not Get Out. And I think that because of the good graces from Get Out, that Us just gets a pass, and I don't think that's okay, because I don't think Us is nearly as good as Get Out. All right. Justin, category, shocked it didn't stink. What was the movie that really surprised you with how good the film was, or how much you enjoyed it?
For this film, I'm going to say this film because I think it's one of the most underrated films. I think that Klaus was the best animated film of 2019. The Christmas movie that Netflix came out with. For me, Emperor's New Groove is one of my favorite animated movies of all time, and it is the Christmas version of Emperor's New Groove. If you have never seen this movie before, even though it's past Christmas time, I would watch it because the animation it's kind of weird to watch, but for me, what wins me over is the type of comedy that he uses, but also the plot moves along fantastically, and it gives a different kind of backstory to how Santa came to be. So I would have to say Klaus.
I've been very vocal about how much I do not like the first movie of this series, but man, Frozen 2 was really good. I did not expect to like the movie as much as I did.
Yes.
The music was great. I still have Into the Unknown and Show Yourself. I have those songs stuck in my head for like forever. But it's not like the way Let It Go was, where it was just like, can we just stop? It's like I genuinely enjoy those songs. Also, the story was really good. Visually, it was breathtaking. Like, it's obviously one of the most well-looking animated films of the year. And you know, I remember we talked about Frozen 2, like we thought the movie was gonna be bad because the way that they started talking in the trailers, but script was really well written. Frozen 2, man, if you haven't seen it, you should.
The fact that they even made fun of Frozen 1 was like fantastic. I loved it.
This is a movie I didn't like the trailer. I didn't have any interest in going to see it, and I wasn't really going to go see it. But, you know, I got an invite one day from my friend. I was like, all right, well, I got nothing else going on. Might as well go. I didn't know anything about the lore beforehand. I haven't seen any of the stuff it's based off of. But the movie, Alita Battle Angel, I was very entertained. I just talked about Captain Marvel. I think Alita Battle Angel is Captain Marvel done right. It was a visually appealing movie, which I didn't expect it to be because it's so CGI heavy reliant. But this movie is not getting a lot of buzz, and I just don't understand it because the story is really good, the characters are really likable, and it's set up for a franchise I'm really excited to see.
Yeah, I sort of attribute it to like the not a lot of buzz, to just the uncanny valley with the way Alita looks. Some people just get turned off by that. All right, worst movie of the year. This is the stinker, the one you don't like, the one you can't like. You can't just tell somebody, oh, hey, I really like this film. Or it could be a film that you liked but didn't like as much as you liked other films. Justin, I'm going to start with you this time.
Okay.
Worst movie of the year.
Yeah, for me, when I go into movies, I usually just like don't like. It's not that I don't like movies. I just choose not to go into movies I know will be bad. So for me, I'd have to say the Lego Movie, the second part, mostly because I forgot I saw that movie earlier this year, and for me, when I forget the fact that I've even seen a movie, for me I don't think that it's a movie that should be watched more than once. The first Lego Movie is fantastic. This one was good, but for me, just not memorable like the first one was.
Okay, I kind of want to backtrack a little bit and change one of my other ones, because Captain Marvel's my pick here. So I got to go back and change my Captain Marvel from earlier because I have a movie I'd rather place in front of that. But first off, Captain Marvel is my least favorite movie of the year for all the reasons I said earlier. I hate everything about it. But tracking back to most disappointing movie of the year, Spider-Man Far From Home. You know, I don't like that movie. I'm sorry. I just don't. Seemed very rushed. There was one great scene in it where Mysterio was kind of messing with his head, but just other than that, there's nothing to remember from that movie for me. I feel like it was a very pointless movie. But yeah, Captain Marvel's worst movie of the year.
Yeah, I knew that was happening. Having a social message in a film has been nothing new in Hollywood. But Black Christmas showed us you still need a good movie. If you don't know what Black Christmas is, it's based on a 1974 slasher film. And it's a 2019 retelling of that same movie, but it's trying to have like this social message about, you know, dismantling the patriarchy and all that stuff. And you know what? If you want to put that in your movie, I don't care. Just let me have a good time. That's all I want. And this movie was not a good time. This was a bad time. It was a very bad time. I cannot physically tell anybody you need to watch this because I get mad thinking about it. The plot is awful. You know everything that's going to happen in the first 5 minutes of the film, and it's a PG-13 horror film. The cardinal sin of any horror movie is when you make it PG-13 because then there's like no intensity to anything. I really hate this movie. Yeah, I'm in a bit of a. All right, I'm sorry that I got a little bit heated with that. But we're at the final one. Best movie of the year. What is the film that made you the most emotional, that you had the most enjoyment with? I think it's fair for me to start.
I think we should all just count this down. Like,
All right.
we'll all have the same answer, I feel.
Yes, we all will have the same answer. I picked a different one because I knew you guys would pick something
Yeah,
else.
I mean, I got number 2s and 3s because I already
Yeah.
know Ayinde. But go on. Go on.
All right.
Just pick the movie you all know you picked.
Listen, guys, I'm a huge comic book man. I love it. I love comic book movies. And I really love Joker. I do. But the emotional release that I got out of Avengers Endgame has been unlike any film that I've ever had, ever. I remember being a kid and going to see Iron Man in 2008, and now seeing that saga come to a close. It was a journey. It tied up everything it needed to. In the final act, it's indescribable for anybody who hasn't seen it. It's the culmination of 22 movies, 11 years of storytelling, that the likes of which we will never see again. You have to give even if you don't like superhero movies, you have to give Avengers Endgame credit for doing something that will never be able to be repeated. For me, that is the movie of the year.
I get the privilege of going second, so I mean, I guess I have to pick the second best movie of the year, and that's Joker. I mean, there's other movies I'd rather pick, but the Joker, I mean, it was the second best movie of the year. I've mentioned a couple of times already. Joaquin Phoenix and Todd Phillips, great combination, great masterpiece. Just everything about that movie, so good.
I guess I have to pick the third best movie of the year. For me, it has to be Knives Out. I think Knives Out was one of those movies that I didn't really have a lot of expectation going into the movie. I knew it was like a murder mystery drama. But for me, it was one of those movies where, like, you didn't know where it was going, but you knew where it was going at the same time. It kept me on my toes. It didn't have, again, a lot of expectations for me, but it had a lot of excitement, had the right amount of comedy in the movie, not too much. So for me, it has to be Knives Out.
All right, you guys. We have some interesting picks, some very obvious ones. And so we have the final segment of our show today, the reshoot segment. This is just one quick question posing to the entire table. Golden Globes happened not too long ago. There have been some weird winners and some not so surprising winners. Guys, what was the most surprising to you? I know Justin has one that he's been wanting to talk about, so I'm gonna let him take the reins on this one.
Why did Missing Link win the best animated film of the year out of Toy Story 4, out of How to Train Your Dragon 2, or 3? It literally does not make any sense. It's so funny. I was talking to one of my friends about this, and he was saying how he was asking people, like, do you know what Missing Link is? And almost all of them said they had no idea what this film was. And I know, like, all of these movies, like, yes, it's because of popularity, and maybe Missing Link is a good movie because I haven't seen it, but I just don't understand how either How to Train Your Dragon 3 or Frozen 2 could not win Best Animated Feature Film of the Year. It makes no sense to me.
All right, I'm going to go with one that this was weird when I saw this person win. It's not even a person, it's a song. I'm going to Love Me Again won Best Original Song. Look, I love that song, but really? Better than Into the Unknown?
Exactly.
I mean, I think it's better than Spirit and Stand Up. Everything from Cats is awful, so Beautiful Ghost definitely wasn't winning. But really, like, I can't see Frozen 2 losing to any other song in that year. So that was, for me, that was shocking. Another one. What? Renee Zellweger winning Best Actress in a Motion Picture?
I never saw that movie, so I can't.
Listen, Scarlett Johansson in Marriage Story, absolutely phenomenal. Should have won. Now, Awkwafina won for Best Actress in a Motion Picture for Musical or Comedy over your girl Ana de Armas from Knives Out. And of course, I mean, I haven't seen 1917 yet, although I want to see 1917, and I'm mad that somebody didn't tell me they were going to see 1917. But because I haven't seen it yet, I'm sort of like, I don't know whether or not it's Sam Mendes' direction was better than Todd Phillips's.
Right.
So for me, I would have taken Todd Phillips.
For me, it's Best Original Score, the Joker winning that one. I love the Joker, but for me, it wasn't the score necessarily that I think was the best of the year. I mean, we said it earlier, in-game. Like,
Yeah.
just a classical score, just what they did with that really submerged you into the film. So that's what I would have chosen here.
Also, it's just interesting for, like, some of those films like Joker. it's very interesting to like pick those films to win best score because of how like it affected the movie, and they don't actually look at the score. So it's just interesting.
Well, all right, guys, thank you for tuning in to our first episode of Cinema Talk. Justin, Brandon, thank you guys so much for coming on the show with me.
Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, dude.
And scene.